expose this brat to who they are.
Oh yeah? Just try it, you crusty air
I feel sorry for you, kid. I'd rather not even do this. You're so outmatched.
And why is that?
Because people still listen to my songs all over the world all these years later. Yours will be forgotten as soon as you die.
We are all tied up, and what are we supposed to do in this situation? Well,
I'll
luckily-
decide then. Unless you just wasted our time.
Dumpy, what are you doing?
Look, we all want to be the one who knows what makes music good. We all want to use it to help out our families, our friends, our community, ourselves. For us, music is our life. We all want to believe that we have our finger on the pulse, that we know what the people need, but the truth is, none of us have that answer. I don't. They don't. You don't. And he doesn't, danger doesn't, no one does. So it's useless to sit around here and quibble about whose music's better, who does this, who doesn't do that. Who cares? Okay? We shouldn't lose sight about what's most important to us as artists, our music. That's what we were put on this earth to do. But this debate, this grandstanding BS is enough to drive anyone insane. Neither one of you have the solution to all the country's problems. And that's okay. It's not about being the best activist or the most radical. It's about each of us working together to build toward a better future. You spend enough time on a show like this, you sometimes forget what it's all for.
Yeah, late tonight, where art goes to broke.
You're not wrong, man.
Why do you do it?
Pays the bills. Not everyone gets to be on TV. Gotta work hard for the airtime we can get.
And this is what your hard work gets you. A throne in the palace of death.
It's not what we dreamed about, no, but you get used to the ghost after a while. After all, we still get to make our own music, do our own concerts. It just doesn't get as much attention as the show does.
Well, what do you want to play?
Well, we are doing a Celia Cruz tribute concert next week. Ranas, want to show the man what we got? Bueno, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mi voz puede volar, podré atravesar cualquier herida, cualquier tiempo, cualquier soledad, sin que la pueda controlar, toma forma de canción, así es mi voz, que sale de mi corazón.
Volará sin yo querer por los caminos más lejanos, por los sueños que soñé. Será el reflejo del amor, de lo que vengo a vivir. Será la música del fondo, de lo mucho que sentí hoy en mi son. Mi viejo son tiene la voz de cualquier generación, en el alma de mi gente, en el cuero del tambor, en las manos del bombero, en los pies del bailador. Yo vi bien, ahí está.
Welcome once again to the Radical Imagination. I'm your host, Jim Vrettos. Philosopher and social activist Cornel West has remarked that music and philosophy fosters relationships in a way that allows us to transcend all the pettiness that gets in the way of building community. For him, musicians are the vanguard of the species because they wrestle with the depths of pain and suffering and try to transfigure it in such a way that we can remain active agents in a very dark and cruel world. Today on the Radical Imagination, we're presenting a discussion of an ingenious, wonderful new play, The Late Frogs, inspired by the 2,500-year-old ancient Greek classic by Aristophanes. It was written by Octavio Vourvoulias as an adaptation to his thesis developed as a student of the classics at Columbia University. In this new creation, Octavio contextualizes the ancient classic as a televised late night debate between two popular musicians as they discuss the role of music's role in modern political activism. We'll be joined by the play's dynamic director, Aiden Murphy, a Scottish-born, Australian-raised, New York-based director, actor, and filmmaker, engaged in the performing arts scene for over a decade. I'm also honored to have my good friend and colleague, Henry Wright, on as a co-host for this show. Henry, among his many other activities, is the chair of the Youth Democracy Movement. So welcome all to the Radical Imagination, and let's dive into this wonderful, wonderful play, this adaptation of Aristophanes, The Frogs. And let's start by talking about the classics itself. And again, Octavio, you were a classics student at Columbia. And so how did your interest really get started in this work and this adaptation?
That's an excellent question, Jim, and thank you for that beautiful intro and for really sticking it out with the name.
Listen,
and full power to you for that. The idea for this thesis came it came from a couple of different sources. I do know as early as junior year, I knew that if I could, I would much rather write a play for my thesis than a 40-page paper, the way all of my classmates were doing. And I asked, and so fortunately for me, the director of undergraduate studies for classics at the time at Columbia, Marcus Fulch, a wonderful human being, he said, absolutely, go for it. As long as it's sufficiently grounded as a piece of scholarship and we can see that it's has that scholarly foundation to it, absolutely. We'd love to have more creative theses. And I had originally hoped that I could actually do just use a play I had already written just of my own volition. It's called Orestia Zeusai. It's like this really goofy play. We imagine like the debut production of Aeschylus's Oresteia, where he can't find any actors to play the female parts, but then unbeknownst to him, his wife and a couple of her friends dress up as men and audition for the female parts in the Oresteia. And I had a lot of fun writing that. That one has yet to be staged, but never say never. But they told me I couldn't use that because it had to be original work. And when I was looking around for stuff to potentially talk about as a thesis that would spark that kind of imagination, and I went back to a time when I was in high school where I first met Henry at St. Stephen's. Shout out St. Stephen's. And it was a time in my life when I religiously watched like YouTube uploads of the debate on Oprah between Jello Biafra and Tipper Gore on the censorship controversy, the PMRC censorship controversy, right? As Jim, I'm sure you remember when all of that was on the air,
right?
And when the whole issue of labeling and the way these labels were so easily weaponized against artists who tried to move the needle in any way,
Yeah.
right? And their intentions became transparent pretty quickly when within a few years their blacklist was almost entirely a black list, as Jello Biafra put it. Almost every artist on it was black, right? I mean, very early on, Biafra and the others, Ice-T as well, could see what was going on, and that idea, that format of a talk show, this kind of like, mainstream television as the landscape through which these ideas could be batted around back and forth was a big inspiration for me. And I, as a thesis advisor, I spoke to and eventually settled on Nancy Warman in the Barnard Classics department, the best thesis advisor I could have ever asked for. She's a truly wonderful human being, and she encouraged me to check out Frogs, see what you think. So I checked out Jeffrey Henderson's translation of Frogs. I thought, oh, like the contest is like, it's that, right? It is the Oprah debate between, Biafra, Gore, etc. And I thought, aha, this is where I could put Aeschylus and Euripides as they're having their poetry contest in the underworld, as we see in the last part of Frogs, right? And so that's how that thesis was born. I do have to give credit to Dr. Warman. She was the one who originally suggested that there be a house band, and so if it weren't for Dr. Warman, there might not be any Don Plutón y las Ranas the way we eventually.
That's the Greek chorus, correct?
Exactly. That was her suggestion for how to properly render the chorus from the source text. So they pick up a lot of those duties with the musical numbers that they perform in the show, and Don Plutón, literally, he's the stand-in for Pluto in some sense. His name, Mr. Pluto, right? And it allowed me to also just like put in that little Easter egg to the source material, because Don Plutón y las Ranas in Spanish literally means Mr. Pluto and the frogs.
I see. And now, if I may, now Henry has so many opinions about everything, and he knows so much. Did you talk about this with Henry at some point?
We reconnected a couple of weeks ago. I remember when Late Frogs was still in rehearsal. I think we were in the heat of rehearsals. Aiden can back me up on this. It would have been in like early to mid-June, and Henry reaches out to me out of the blue to suggest getting a coffee. We hadn't seen each other in a couple of years, and that's when I told him about Late Frogs, and he mentioned you right away, and said that this was exactly the kind of thing that you talk about on your show, and having watched a part of the interview you did with Cornel West as well, I could really see the depth of that engagement that you always strive for, especially when you think about Cornel West and his defense of the importance of classics at Howard University. I remember when he came out in defense of the Howard Classics Department, right, stressing its importance to how we understand the world we live in today.
Right. Well, and also Cornell has his own band. Well, it's not his band, but there's a band that honors him and uses his name. But okay, so how did Aiden get involved in all of this? Aiden, welcome.
Yes, thank you. So I mean, Octavio and I, we had been we did auditions together a lot, helping each other with self-tapes and things like that. And we had been discussing back and forth different plays and things that we could hypothetically do, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and such. And then one day I decided to attend one of his lectures. He did a talk at the New School. Personally, I had a feeling that it was going to be like a couple of nerds in the auditorium and needed to back the guy up. He was looking good. He was in his blazer and everything. But the place was packed, and I was like, damn, yeah.
There you go.
People are into it. But what I
like
loved most about listening to this play, and he had mentioned a couple of times that he had This is what he was doing as part of his thesis. So this was the first time I really got to like take it all in. Um, and it was so great because it was like this is something that doesn't require too much ins and outs, but it doesn't need to. There's a lot of complexity even in the simplest of conversation, and very much in that moment, I was like, we can do this, and we can do it fast. So I went up to Octavio. I was like, hey, do you want to stage it? Next day, we're looking into theaters. And that's basically how that happened.
Wow. Now, Henry, just jump in here anytime you'd like. I
You
did
know,
want, yeah, go ahead.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
I just wanted to say it doesn't surprise me at all that you say that the place was packed because I'm sure that any lecture to which Octavio would address himself would, of course, be busy and crowded. But I am curious what you might say as to why that is. You know, why are you personally drawn to the classics today? Is it, in your estimation, a lens to understand contemporary society, or is it more rooted in the pleasure of the reading itself? And would you say that perhaps the answer that you might give to that question aligns with the potential reason that the lecture would be so oversubscribed?
I mean,
Well,
you talking to me or?
I suppose both of you.
Yeah, sure.
Um, I always appreciate um, classical storytelling as a lens for the contemporary. I feel like a lot of work nowadays is always trying to look towards the new and is missing out on a lot of important substance. Um, so it was fascinating to me to see how this story unfolds in such a way that it is very much contemporary, but then drawing back to the themes and values of the original script and just how much we really haven't evolved as human beings made it made was very evident as to why there were so many people attending, especially so many young people seemed to be fascinated by the script and the adaptation as well.
Mm.
and just to piggyback off of that, I think um, one of the enduring appeals of classics, especially for me and so many others of our generations, we read Aristophanes, we read Cicero, we read Virgil, Homer, etc. Or we just like travel to Greece, southern Italy, Turkey, etc. To and look at buildings, inscriptions, and we see. I think what's one thing that's so striking is just how little we've changed. I mean, like I remember the last time I was in Athens, just to give you a very small example. Last time I was in Athens, um, we took a trip up to Delphi, where you can see the Oracle of Delphi, right? The temple where her shrine would have been, and all this, and it's such a fascinating site. It's so atmospheric, and you can see where like the fumes that would have been kicked up that led people to believe that some mystical shit was going on. I don't know what the policy is on cursing on this show, but fuck.
It's fine. Do whatever you want.
Thank
Yes,
you, thank you.
do that.
Fuck yeah.
Skata, right? We use even skata. That's
let's
Greek. Okay, all right.
let's fucking go. Um,
Yeah,
but
go.
there's a little inscription on the base of one of the pillars, uh, talking about how the city of Delphi had made a deal with the island of Chios that basically, in exchange for political favors from Chios to Delphi, the Delphians would let the Chians skip the line to ask the oracle questions.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? So
Wow. Sounds like
it's a nice
Trump
little
here. Yeah.
example of to me of just like
Oh,
the the way legitimate religious and spiritual beliefs could be retrofitted and adapted to like the ultimate act of political pragmatism, right? Which we still see today, right? We still see all that going on today. So it's just another example of how the centuries may change, the context may change, the era and all of it, all of that may change, but standards, values, etc. But at the end of the day, people stay pretty constant, and I kind of love that.
You love that.
Yeah, I
Now,
mean, love,
that's a surprising thought that you added there.
well,
What
I
you
think
love
it's
about that?
I think it breaks down the myth that like that that ancient texts are somehow inaccessible or like a
I see.
relic. I think it speaks to how living these texts are because people are still like that, right?
Do you mind if I push back a little bit here? Okay, I'm the elder of the group here, okay? So putting my gray hair on the line here. Look, I was at Columbia too, 68. Uh, Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, came and played in the midst of the takeover of the buildings and so on and so on. Music and art and poetry and dance, satire was central to the movement. And it made huge difference, particularly in the Black church, right? Old gospels and Negro spirituals and so on, that Aretha Franklin and others adapted and so on. It was heady, heady time. Sure, there was there was chaos, there was friction, there was conflict, there was debate, a debate upon debate, just went on and on and on. But people were acting and they were motivated and inspired by the music. I don't think you could have had the 60s without that. And I think Cornell would probably back me up on that. So, yes, things began to change, and then we certainly had a vicious backlash. And for the last 50 years or so, we've been battling that in a variety of ways. And so, but to say that nothing can change, uh, yeah, is a very depressing thought, it seems to me. Stupid things can happen as well in terms of change, but we do have some guidelines too, and we do have voices that we could look to in the past, and along with these wonderful, wonderful classic authors as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I please don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, the reason we write plays like this at all is because we believe change is possible,
Right.
right? I think what I was getting at in my theory on the enduring appeal of classical texts is exactly this: the idea that human beings can see echoes of themselves across these centuries through these texts,
Right.
right? And um, I think the reason the Iliad has never faded into irrelevance is because somewhere in the world there has always been a war, right? And because the Iliad, at the end of the day, is a poem all about war,
Right.
And there has never not been a war in the world, right? Or the Odyssey, which is all about the search for home and the desire to return home, right? Nostalgia, right? Literally in ancient Greek that means sickness for home, right? Uh, yeah, yeah, sickness for home. Uh, these stories endure because those concepts endure, those feelings endure, that we can all see ourselves in. Absolutely, of course, change is possible.
Oh.
That's the reason we put on this play in the first place. We wouldn't have been so motivated to do this if we didn't believe that we couldn't affect at least that we couldn't move the needle at least a little bit. Absolutely.
But now, Henry, you immersed yourself in the classics as well. Um, you've also argued that the hero is seen often within this patriarchal context, and the issue of fate here that governs everything. So, Henry, how would you respond to what Octavio just has said?
Well, I think it's certainly fascinating to the extent that you are right. The primary impulses that seem to govern so many of the protagonists and narratives in the classics are rooted in kind of an adoration of violence and penchant to to make war, I would say. And it seems that there might be some disagreement with that, but I imagine that that might shift based on the text. Um, but I suppose one question that I have with reference to war, because that is one of the primary themes that you mentioned, and at the moment, the United States arguably seems to find itself at war with multiple countries, whether or not the Congress is willing to recognize that. And the original play by Aristophanes, to my understanding, was set as the Peloponnesian War was winding down. So I am curious to what extent the constancy and the impulse for war was on your mind, given its placement in the original text and also in today's context.
Absolutely. It was 100% there. It was one of many factors that was there. I mean, if we look at the contest and the questions that Aristophanes, that Aeschylus, excuse me, and Euripides get in the play from Dionysus, um, one of them is about what to do with Alcibiades, right? But the rest of them, they're all about how to save the city, right? What are we going to do about where the city is at? This play was written in an era when the very notion of Athenian democracy was hanging by a thread, right? The Peloponnesian War was almost over. Athens's greatness, in the eyes of certainly the rest of the Greek-speaking city-states, had taken a major beating, right? I mean, we were a couple of decades removed from the heyday of Athenian democracy when Aeschylus was writing, right? Just off the back of the Persian Wars, right? This time, you had Greek speakers fighting against other Greek speakers. And the Peloponnesian Wars figure very prominently in Aristophanes' other work as well, including, most famously like Lysistrata, Acharnians, etc. Um, and this, we really see in this play Aristophanes seriously interrogating, where do we go from here, right? What do we do about the fact that we've been drawn into this bloody, pointless war? And it speaks to the power of, as Cornel West says, the power and influence that artists wield, that they are the ones we go to with these questions, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
In our era, or in the Athens that Aristophanes was living in, the playwrights, right? The tragedians.
If I may, Aiden and Octavio on this, who are the musicians, the figures that your generation looks up to for the inspiration that I used to have? I still have it, but who speaks to you today along those lines?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I feel like those artists that influence me are not of this current time, so I have to like
Wow.
think about it. Um,
Oof.
yeah, but that was like the kind of questions that we were demonstrating in the play, especially with the conflict between both Andy and E Danger, and the qualities that they have represented by each generation that came before, and then how those values have changed over time, which has caused conflict between them. It also draws back to what you were saying earlier, Jim, about how music was very much a statement of how change can be made. And that's why one of our actors who played Andy, he did a brilliant job at bringing forth those ideals in a time where society has changed again and they no longer exist, or at least are no longer as impactful as the other person's E Danger, what they bring forward. Um, but yeah, no. Uh, Personally, I'm more of like the psychedelic rock, Pink Floyd.
Really? Okay.
Look to them.
Jefferson Airplane?
What's that?
Jefferson Airplane?
Jefferson Airplane, I like them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Uh,
So it's more internal growth and liberation, uh, or is it? Are you attracted to the performers that were telling us to get out there in the streets, or Joan Baez, or the folk artists, and so on? That's so influenced again. Also, the Pete Seeger, and to name a few here. Um, Jerry Garcia also, the Grateful Dead is more of, and of course, the Beatles were pretty psychedelic, right? Most of the time, um, versus the Rolling Stones. Let It Be versus Let It Bleed. Uh, the distinction there. Well, I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but why, again, is it the corporate media, the corporate world that has been able to control our thoughts, our music, our takeover? I mean, look, I mean, it's getting to the point where it's if it wasn't so, destructive, it'd be laughable. I mean, Trump wants to take over. God knows what other artistic venture he wants to control now. The Metropolitan Museum, public TV, and so on. So, how do we push back from that? What would the great classic commentators say? How did they push back? What did they do?
Well,
Sit back and, well, that's that. End the ball game.
well, Aristophanes certainly would say the opposite. He encourages in frogs action, right, rather than just talking about it. And he certainly the way he pushed back in his plays, which shouldn't be taken as a one size fits all solution by any means, but his way of doing that was through satire, parody, farce, and he was extreme about it in times. I remember learning his debut play. He was sued for libel by an Athenian politician named Cleon. I think the play was Babylonians.
Huh.
And after winning the lawsuit, he just went right back and made fun of Cleon in his next play, right? For
He had a
Aristophanes,
good lawyer. He had a good lawyer, and he wasn't backing down.
no, no, and that's exactly the approach that we have to take. And I think
Yeah.
both in Frogs and in Late Frogs, we really stress what I think is so important to keep hold of, and sometimes gets lost in this conversation, is that it does us no good to quibble about how to push back, right? It
Great.
does us no good to moralize about, like, oh, well, my method of resistance is superior to yours. The focus should be on resisting together.
I got to say, I couldn't agree with you more. The left progressives are famous for this, for destroying each other, and it just so stupid. And as you can tell, it piques me no end. So absolutely, you're on to. We've got to come together, and some people you're not going to be able to convince, or and just that's it. But you're right, absolutely right. So
just
go ahead.
to jump in on that point, it seems though that there are so many artists who refuse to speak out in public, or who are willing to recognize the politics inherent in their art or in current events. Would you say, given the prized and more politically engaged role that Aristophanes, the playwright, is exemplifying, that those artists who seem to shy away from the challenge of public or politicized interventions are somehow lesser artists, or within that definition, are they no artists at all? Or are we saying that perhaps there is now more of an acceptability to the artist who wishes to sing about sunshine and trips to the beach and cotton candy, and that art itself may have validity for its own purposes. So how would we start to reckon with this changing role of the artist and this interplay between a willingness to take action and the unwillingness to even try to imagine resistance?
Well, I mean that this this distinction between like, overt political themes and, writing a song about a sunshine and a day at the beach. I mean, to be honest, there's no reason why sunshine and a day at the beach can't be an act of resistance as well. I mean, certainly, what someone listening to that song may need in that moment is exactly that. Especially if they're going through a difficult time in life. Um, we could all use some sunshines and days at the beach in our lives. I think that's true for everyone. And I again I think it does us a disservice um, to make that kind of like to delineate between like, oh well, this person sings about this, so therefore they're like a real artist. This person sings about this other thing, therefore they're like a lesser artist. I think that's exactly what we skewer in Late Frogs. I mean, Andy goes after E Danger for, as he sees it, only singing about uh, sex and drugs and like slacking off from work or whatever. Um, and E Danger in turn accuses Andy of like being a relic of a past that people can't relate to anymore. But what we try to drive home, especially through the character of Don Pluton, who who's been in the music world for many years. He's inspired by a myriad of Latino artists that I look up to, namely Tito Puente, Carlos Santana.
Yeah.
He brings a perspective that neither of them have taken into account, which is that this petty squabbling does us no good, right? And just distracts us from from the from the collective resistance that we all need to get on board with, right? So I don't know that this like greater artist, lesser artist distinction is helpful to that at all. I think it's in that sense like it all has a place. Um, and
You know
then
who's great on that, Octavia? Sly and the Family Stone. Sly and the Family Stone, who just passed on a few months ago. The funkiness of life. And in a funny, well, I don't know, in a funny way, that last scene in Zorba the Greek, where the professor and Zorba are dancing, right, on the beach, and everything's failed. There's a big catastrophe. They lost all their money. And what does Zorba say to Alan Bates? You lack only one thing, sort of craziness. And they dance and they laugh, and there'll be another days. And that's fun. There's got to be fun and enjoyment in the movement too. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So
It is though worth considering the extent to which uh, and I am certain that your play may touch on this with reference to the role of the social activist or the artist activist, the extent to which some artists may pass themselves off as social justice warriors in the interest of turning a profit or attracting attention for a piece of art that is apolitical.
hmm,
So I wonder to what extent does your play touch on that? And I find, especially in the second clip that was played, even the actor who said that it is, something along the lines of incumbent upon all of us to build a better future. And I'm not sure if this was purposeful, but the lilt at the end of his sentence uh, almost fell flat. And I think that that can sometimes be the case in the context of speaking before a television audience, in the sense that does a message that is conveyed through television, beside a band on late night, does that hold the same degree of political resistance as going out into the street and holding a sign during a protest, or is it inherently performative? So where does one sort of draw the line between the performance of the justice and the resistance to the injustice itself? Because your play, I think, deals really interestingly, and specifically with the medium of television, which did not exist um, during the ancient times when Aristophanes would have been writing. So how are you reckoning with the role of television, so to speak?
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I've been talking a while and Aiden hasn't responded in a hot minute. So Aiden, I wanted to pass the mic to you first.
We're going to do another show. There's much more to talk about. Yes.
Yes, it's a good comment. It was very important to us that we put everyone into the world of a soundstage audience and this being a talk show. And most certainly that transition that we have when we go between Aristophanes speaking and when we go between the actors, we go between the musicians and the host on the show. It was very important to show the production value versus the raw stage. That way we could kind of enter from a perspective of, wow, this is what we're showing you, this is what we want you to see, to this is the reality of where we live and what we're doing. So there's definitely a lot of forces within the set that emphasize exactly what you're saying. What is real in political activism, what is real in what is being said through the art versus what is being construed by television and censoring exactly what is being said. Don P does kind of fall flat in everyone's response because it's not scripted, it's he comes out and everyone's like, why the fuck is this guy speaking? He is in the band, he plays the little frog thing, and that's his job. So his stance, his walking forward is him saying, this is how I feel, this is how I've been manipulated by television, but this is how I feel inside, and I've been holding it throughout the entire production. Whereas everyone else are sitting there like still caught up in this argument that they haven't really resolved. And they're too blinded by trying to show off to the world who's better that they didn't really catch anything that he said, and it's very true to television. And even you can see how the host kind of tries to frame it in such a way that makes it seem real, always speaking into the microphone, trying to throw something out there that we can divert our attention to what they want to say. And it's very true to how media behaves to art in general. Whether the impact of doing it out on the street versus on television is different. Television has a broader outreach, but once again, how do we know how much is true? But still, the simple act of him coming forward and speaking is showing the true passion behind the art of what he does, which I thought was, it was a very pinnacle moment, despite the fact that he fell flat as a character. I'm sure the audience would have definitely picked up his feelings as they would have been experiencing those feelings going through the production and watching it unfold themselves.
Great points. Great points. Response to Henry, their part. Go to a Reverend William Barber rally, and the the songs that are being sung, and the sermon, and then the marching. Very, very important song that's usually at one of these rallies is someone is hurting my brother. And now that happened to have been actually written by an old friend of mine, Frederick Douglass Kirkpatrick, back in the 60s. And so it's been adapted. And yet this is such a powerful song, and it gets the audience going. And then Reverend Barber gets on that dais there and has this incredible sermon. And then you're out ready to march, get arrested, protest, and sit in on the Congress people. And he's bringing coffins now into the Senate for all the people who are going to be dying for the cuts. I mean, there is this connection. You're absolutely right. Not too many people are doing that, but I think we need this sort of, again, as Cornell said at the beginning, the philosophy, the art, the activism, the courage, the integrity. Put yourself in, walk the walk, as we used to say. And it's difficult. It's difficult to do, but absolutely just wonderful, wonderful points, though, Aiden. So I think we're definitely going to have to do another show. Not have to. We want to. I want to. And I hope you'll agree that we can find a time. And is that okay? Aiden, I heard.
Absolutely. Part 2
It's
featuring
smiled.
Vourvoulias.
Part 2. What was that? I missed that. What?
That's the mythological Vourvoulias.
Why not?
That's your thumbnail.
Yeah. Okay. And absolutely. And when Henry comes back from Denmark, if he ever comes, you're going to come back, right? As I know it's paradise there.
I mean, the more I read about the militarization of DC, the less keen I am to return to a city not far by.
Well, return you must. Just like, you're coming to Athena, and we'll all get together and talk about this much more. And it's really been just a wonderful pleasure to listen to everything you've been talking about, and you strike a chord so much in my own background and what I've been through, and I appreciate your knowledge and your energy and your laughter and your intelligence and your stick-to-itness. So, we've got to have that, as Cornell would say, never let catastrophe have the final word. Right? Octavio's nodding his head. All right.
It's also important to say, and I'm sure that there will be some more time to discuss this in greater depth, that the principles behind this play, you two included, are quite young, and it's worth recognizing both the challenges and the values to putting on a play at that age, and simply how impressive it is as an achievement. So I think,
Bravo.
for the audience, for you two, congratulations on the staging of the play, and we will certainly have more time to discuss, the role of young people in society and the challenges that a younger artist may face in still persisting to stage the play at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Just out of curiosity, how old was Aristophanes when he wrote the frogs?
No clue. I mean, that's the thing about about the ancient playwrights. What biographical details we have about him tends to be like scant at best. We have some joke, I don't remember from which play, that claims Aristophanes went bald at a young age.
Yeah, right.
But that's about all we've got. I mean, like, Frogs, I believe, was one of his later plays. It was 405 BC. It premiered at the Linnaea Festival, the comedy festival, in 405 BCE. But
Right.
I would have to Google him to tell you, like, if it's even known when he was born, when he died. That I don't remember those dates.
He was into, and then there was the flies and the clouds and all this.
I haven't heard about the flies, but the clouds is hilarious.
Clouds are hilarious.
Read any Socratic dialogue and then read clouds, and you'll be rolling on the floor.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's say farewell, not farewell, but goodbye, and see you again for another show sooner than later in person. And it's just been my pleasure and my honor. And thank you so much, all of you, being here. And Henry, thank you for guest hosting. And keep on keeping on.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having us, James.
Thanks for having us, guys. Thank you, Jim, Henry, and thank you, Rowan, as well, for putting all this together, recording, producing, all that. Aiden and I, we spent 3 months producing a play. We are very familiar with how why so many producers get ulcers. So thank
Absolutely.
you as well.
Octavio Vourvoulias and Aiden Murphy, Henry Wright, Vourvoulias. Got it.
Yes, there you go.
All right. This is James Vrettos saying to everyone, welcome again. We will see you again on the Radical Imagination next week.